police dog focused on the teacher's bag, barking repeatedly. She initially dismissed it. However, the principal's examination of the bag revealed a startling discovery that shocked everyone. Here's the account of what occurred. Before we delve into today's story, please leave a comment below indicating your location. And if you enjoy remarkable police dog stories such as this one, be sure to subscribe. You won't want to miss future content. The autumn morning air felt crisp and clean. Officer Rebecca Martinez, known as Becca by her friends and colleagues, drove her patrol car into the visitor parking lot of Lincoln Elementary School. The large brick building, featuring colorful playground equipment and hand-painted murals, appeared welcoming in the early October sunlight. Beside her, Riker, her 3-year-old German Shepherd partner, remained watchful in his specially designed compartment, his dark, intelligent eyes following the children as they entered the school. "Ready for another school demonstration?" Becca asked, reaching back to scratch behind his ears. Riker's tail thumped against the seat, his posture remaining professional despite his obvious excitement. These community outreach events were his favorite assignments. He enjoyed the attention and the occasional treat sneaked to him by an admiring child. As Becca adjusted her crisp Oakland Police Department uniform in the rearview mirror, she felt a surge of pride in their 2 years together. She and Riker had established themselves as one of the department's most respected canine teams. His detection skills were exceptional, his obedience flawless, and the bond between them unwavering. These school demonstrations served a purpose beyond community relations. They offered an opportunity to inspire the next generation. Principal Harrison greeted them at the front entrance, offering a warm and welcoming handshake. Mr. Martinez arrived, stating perfect timing. "The assembly is all set up in the gymnasium." The children had been discussing it constantly all week. Becca trailed after him through hallways displaying student artwork and educational posters. Riker kept his heels perfectly aligned beside her. The gymnasium was filled with the eager conversation of elementary students seated cross-legged on the floor, their teachers positioned carefully around the edges. "Good morning, Lincoln Elementary," Principal Harrison's voice announced over the microphone. "Today we have some very special guests. Please join us in welcoming Officer Rebecca Martinez and her partner, Riker." The demonstration commenced without issue. Rebecca detailed Riker's training as he executed fundamental obedience commands, drawing expressions of admiration as he accurately retrieved objects and successfully completed a miniature obstacle course. The children watched attentively while Rebecca described how police dogs assist in locating missing individuals and identifying hazardous materials. "Could any teachers volunteer for our scent detection demonstration?" Becca inquired, presenting a training aid, a small canister containing a trace scent intended for demonstrations. Ms. Eleanor Winters, a petite woman with a neat brown bob and wire-rimmed glasses, volunteered among several others. As the respected 4th grade teacher approached, something shifted in Riker's demeanor. His ears perked up, and his body grew stiff next to Becca. Riker abruptly turned away from the training aid. His focus shifted to Ms. Winters' tote bag, located near the gymnasium wall. A low growl emanated from his throat, a sound Becca had never encountered during a school visit. "Riker, heel," Becca instructed softly. However, her partner remained focused, his growl evolving into persistent, urgent barking that reverberated through the suddenly silent gymnasium. The sudden change from a happy demonstration to Riker's forceful barking immediately created a noticeable tension throughout the gymnasium. Children who had been smiling just a few moments prior now appeared concerned, with some even moving backward on the gleaming floor. Ms. Winters paused in her step, her face losing color as Riker continued barking at her canvas tote bag. "Riker, stop," Becca stated more sternly, placing a hand on his tactical harness. The shepherd paused briefly but stayed watchful, his gaze fixed on the bag. 15 years in law enforcement, and 8 as a K-9 handler, had shown Becca how to understand her partners with remarkable precision. This wasn't enthusiasm or bewilderment, it was a practiced alert. Principal Harrison approached, his formal smile tight as he spoke to the students, who were beginning to whisper, "Perhaps we should take a brief 5-minute break? Teachers, please direct your classes back to your rooms briefly." The organized movement of 200 elementary students returning with their teachers allowed Becca a moment to consider the situation. Ms. Winters remained still, her fingers fidgeting with the silver pendant around her neck. "I am so sorry about this," the principal stated once the gym was clear, his voice quiet. "Ms. Winters is among our most valued educators, Teacher of the Year on 2 occasions. There must be some error." Becca nodded, keeping a professional demeanor as her thoughts quickly considered various explanations. Incorrect alerts sometimes occurred with all K-9 units, but Riker's performance history was almost flawless. Furthermore, she understood his alerts. This wasn't hesitation, this was certainty. "Eleanor, do you have any idea what might be causing this reaction?" Principal Harrison asked softly. Ms. Winters replied that she did not, but Becca observed her hand move as if to shield a bag. "Maybe some food would be nice? I brought banana bread for the teacher's lounge." "Food wouldn't trigger this kind of alert," Becca explained carefully. "Riker is trained for narcotics, certain medications, and explosives." The word explosives made Principal Harrison's eyes widen slightly. Ms. Winters let out a small, shaky laugh. "This is absurd. I've been teaching here for 12 years. Becca observed the subtle details most would miss. The slight tremor in Ms. Winters' right hand. She noticed the way her eyes avoided direct contact. Beads of perspiration appeared at her hairline, even though the gymnasium was cool. "Ms. Winters, with your permission, I'd like to check your bag," Becca said, keeping her voice calm and friendly. "It would resolve this quickly, and we can return to the demonstration." "I don't think that's necessary," Ms. Winters responded, taking a slight step backward. "This is embarrassing enough as it is." Principal Harrison appeared conflicted, his eyes moving between the esteemed teacher and the vigilant police dog. "Eleanor, perhaps it would be best to simply—" "Tom, this is absurd," Ms. Winters interjected, addressing the principal by his first name. "You know me." But Riker had started barking again, more urgently now, pulling a little against his harness. Something was clearly amiss, and Becca needed to discover the cause. Anxiety filled the vacant gymnasium as Becca recalled her initial day at the Oakland Police Department's K-9 Training Center. The memory remained clear. A brisk morning similar to today, with the sound of dogs barking throughout the training area, and her own apprehensive excitement as Sergeant Wilson guided her towards the kennels. Martinez was introduced to Riker, as he stopped before a kennel containing a young German shepherd with intelligent eyes and ears that appeared too large for his head. He had failed his first training program. The trainer said he was too independent, but she felt she saw potential in him. The question was, did she? She recalled kneeling before the kennel, meeting Riker's gaze as he studied her with an intensity that seemed almost human. Unlike other dogs who barked or jumped excitedly, Riker had simply watched, assessing. After she had finished speaking, "Hey there, partner," he moved toward the gate, his posture alert but calm. "Well, I'll be damned," Sergeant Wilson had muttered. First handler he hasn't growled at. Their training had been grueling. Riker's independence made him resistant to standard techniques, and Becca had endured several suggestions to request a different dog, but she'd perceived something in his stubbornness, a determination that mirrored her own. They had encouraged each other, tested each other, and ultimately established a pattern that evolved them from separate individuals into an outstanding team. Their significant moment occurred 6 months into training during a complicated search exercise. While other teams adhered to the standard procedure, Riker had abruptly changed direction, guiding Becca to a concealed training tool that had been inadvertently dropped during setup. The instructors had been astonished. The assistance wasn't included in the operation, yet Riker had identified its faint signal amidst numerous interferences. Subsequently, they had compiled a record that demonstrated their effectiveness. This included 17 successful drug seizures, 3 missing children located, and a reputation for precision that had established them as the department's preferred team for challenging investigations. Only recently, in the past month, they had exposed a complex smuggling ring at the port that had bypassed standard searches. However, there had also been resistance. Just last week, Lieutenant Garcia had questioned Becca's decision to search a home based solely on Riker's alert, suggesting she was too quick to trust the dog's instincts over human intelligence. The search had produced no results, a rare failure that still felt disappointing. Sometimes I wonder if we place too much faith in these animals, Garcia had commented afterward. They're tools, Martinez, not fortune tellers. The recollection reinforced Becca's determination as she confronted the present circumstances. Riker wasn't merely an asset, he was her colleague, and his current demeanor indicated a serious problem with Ms. Winter's bag. The recent increase in prescription drug abuse among teenagers heightened the worry. Several local high schools had documented occurrences within the past month, and stories were spreading regarding a structured distribution network. Was it possible this had extended to the elementary level? The thought caused her discomfort. Becca steadied herself, concentrating on the current situation, Riker's unwavering vigilance, and Ms. Winter's growing anxiety. Her years of training solidified into a firm conviction. This wasn't an error or chance occurrence. This was Riker acting precisely as he's been taught. Ms. Winter, Becca stated, her voice calm but resolute, I'm going to need to examine that bag. The teacher held her tote more tightly. This is entirely unwarranted and humiliating. I have personal items inside. Medication, personal items. Principal Harrison cleared his throat. Eleanor, please, let's resolve this so we can proceed with the program. The tension in the gymnasium was noticeable, thick like the air before a storm. Riker stayed focused, his training preventing him from approaching without instruction. However, his posture conveyed unwavering confidence. If your concern involves prescription medication, Becca suggested, I understand. You may present those details to Principal Harrison directly. Ms. Winters looked towards the exit doors. I would prefer that my private health details are not discussed within the school. This feels like a breach of privacy. Eleanor, Principal Harrison stated, lowering his voice to a worried tone, you have previously been willing to provide your migraine medication to the nurse. What has changed? She lowered her shoulders a little. All right. However, I prefer this handled in private, without a police dog creating a spectacle. Becca agreed. We can utilize your office, Principal Harrison. Riker will need to be there. His response initiated this. But we can be discreet. The journey to the administrative offices was quiet and strained. Riker kept his heel position perfectly beside Becca, but his focus stayed on the tote bag held tightly against Ms. Winter's side. Numerous teachers looked from their classrooms as they walked past. Upon entering the principal's office, Harrison closed the blinds and indicated the visitor chairs. Let's resolve this swiftly and professionally, he stated. Principal Harrison, please examine the bag, Becca requested, adhering to procedure by having the school administrator perform the search while she attended to Riker. Ms. Winter's hand trembled as she placed her tote on the desk, her face now pale. This was absurd, she whispered, but the protest seemed uninspired. Principal Harrison paused, then cautiously opened the bag. His expression changed from skeptical to confused to shocked as he removed items and placed them on his desk. A small plastic container that seemed to hold prescription pills, but without any pharmacy labels, 3 flash drives, a stack of papers resembling test papers marked with confidential state assessment stamps across the top, and lastly, a notebook filled with student names and what appeared to be payment amounts. Eleanor, Harrison's voice was barely audible. What is this? Ms. Winters slumped into a chair, her face hidden in her hands. It's not what it looks like, she mumbled. Harrison, his usual calm facade faltering, pointed to what appeared to be test materials that had left the secure testing room. Becca identified medication Adderall, recognizing the pills from previous cases, a prescription stimulant often abused to enhance studying and test performance. Ms. Winters looked up, tears tracing a path down her face. You don't understand the pressure, the persistent demands for higher test scores, the funding connected to performance metrics, she said. Riker, remaining alert, moved closer to the desk drawer, his attention moving away from the bag. There's more, Becca stated softly, gesturing toward the drawer, and adding, may I? Principal Harrison nodded silently, and Becca opened the drawer. Within it was another container of pills, distinct from the first. The medications were clearly labeled as prescriptions, issued to different people, none of whom were Eleanor Winters. I was simply attempting to assist them, Ms. Winters cried, referring to the struggling students, those experiencing anxiety, and those whose parents lacked the financial means. Were you distributing illegally obtained prescription medication to elementary school students? Harrison inquired, his voice devoid of emotion. It's important, just a few eighth graders, and then their older siblings at the high school requested it. Her voice faded as the full impact of her actions seemed to register. Oh, God, what have I done? Becca entered the hallway to call for assistance via radio, leaving Principal Harrison to observe Ms. Winters. The usual, somewhat disorderly atmosphere of the school day persisted around them, students and teachers oblivious to the events unfolding in the principal's office. Upon her return, Ms. Winters appeared calmer, although her hands still shook as she held a tissue. Lieutenant Wilson and other officers were en route, Becca stated. Ms. Winters, I'd like to examine your classroom, Harrison said, his expression still showing the impact of a trusted colleague's actions. According to our findings, Becca responded, observing Ms. Winters visibly withdrawing into her seat. Riker is still suggesting the possibility of more. 20 minutes elapsed before Lieutenant Wilson arrived, accompanied by 2 other officers. The school's hallways were swiftly evacuated, and a focus team proceeded to Ms. Winters' 4th grade classroom. The vibrant reading nook and inspirational posters created a striking contrast to the seriousness of the circumstances. Riker proceeded deliberately, moving around the room with a familiar expertise. Upon reaching the teacher's desk, he alerted once more, nudging at a lower drawer resembling a typical file cabinet. There is nothing further, Ms. Winters stated softly from the doorway, accompanied by an officer. Everything was contained within my bag. Becca inspected the drawer, observing an unusual characteristic regarding its size. This drawer is less deep than expected, she remarked. Her fingers discovered a concealed catch, which, when released, exposed a hidden compartment. The interior revealed further test materials, a small digital scale, multiple notebooks containing ledger entries, and a stack of cash carefully banded. Lieutenant Wilson softly whistled. This is a rather complex operation for a 4th grade teacher. Becca understood, leafing through one of the notebooks. The entries spanned 3 years and included various handwritings. There were also coded references to other schools in the district. The available information revealed a troubling scenario. A group involving educators and potentially administrators appeared to be altering test results throughout the district. At the same time, they were running a prescription drug operation. Medications were being given to students with assurances of improved focus and exam results, fostering a pattern of reliance and academic misconduct. Faced with further proof, Ms. Winters became overwhelmed. It began modestly, she wept, initially assisting a small number of students with early versions of study resources. Subsequently, Peterson at Northwood High suggested the use of Adderall, claiming his students showed a 40% improvement with pharmaceutical aid. The school district continually increased the performance benchmarks, warning that schools failing to meet the standards would be closed. Where are you obtaining the prescription medications? Lieutenant Wilson inquired. Crowley and the science department have access to the medical supply room, she replied. Andrews, working within the administration, made changes to the inventory records, she confided. Please recognize we were in a dire situation. The system requires unrealistic outcomes. And when schools underperform, teachers face job losses. Communities are negatively impacted. So you resorted to supplying drugs to children? Becca questioned, disbelief evident in her voice. Ms. Winters remained silent, her response only tears. As officers continued to document the evidence, Becca watched Ms. Winters through the conference room window. The teacher, formerly held in high regard, now sat slumped at the table, responding to Lieutenant Wilson's questions amidst tears. The woman's decline was remarkable in its speed, shifting from a valued educator to someone accused of a crime within a few hours. Becca's thoughts turned to Ms. Winters' personnel file, which Principal Harrison had provided while they waited for the search warrant. Eleanor Winters, 43, had grown up in Oakland's struggling East Side. Despite significant challenges, she obtained a teaching degree and returned to serve her community. Her initial performance reviews were filled with commendations for her commitment to students facing adversity. What became of the hopeful young teacher? The narrative unfolded gradually through Ms. Winters' confession. 5 years ago, the school district introduced new standardized testing requirements directly linked to school funding. Lincoln Elementary, serving a predominantly working-class neighborhood, had faced challenges in meeting increasingly demanding metrics. "You can't fully grasp what it's like," Ms. Winters had explained, her voice filled with a sense of exhaustion. "We are evaluated solely on test scores, without consideration for whether children are genuinely learning or developing." Last year, the school received notification that if scores didn't improve by 15%, the school would be closed and students would be reassigned to Central Heights. Central Heights Elementary, situated across the highway in a more affluent area, required an hour-long bus ride for many Lincoln students. The closure would have been devastating for working parents who depended on after-school programs and local support networks. "Initially, we implemented after-school sessions," she explained, supplemented with extra worksheets and practice tests. "However, our students were already facing significant challenges, many coming from homes where parents held multiple jobs, where English wasn't the primary language, and where basic needs weren't consistently met. The situation intensified as initial scores indicated only slight progress." It was then that Alan Peterson, a high school teacher encountering comparable difficulties, contacted her with a proposition: advance copies of test materials in exchange for guaranteed results. The scheme had developed over time. What started as sharing test preparation materials progressed to providing actual test questions. When that approach wasn't enough, Peterson proposed using pharmaceutical aids, such as Adderall and similar stimulants, to assist students in concentrating during exams. Initially, scores increased by 22%, Ms. Winters had confessed. "The district lauded us as an example of educational reform. Parents felt reassured that their children would not be transported across town. Teachers retained their positions." What Ms. Winters had not foreseen was the rapid escalation of the program beyond her ability to manage. Several other schools experiencing difficulties sought similar assistance. Students started asking for medication to be used outside of testing situations. This created a complex underground market disguised as a commitment to high academic standards. "I simply wanted to aid my students," she murmured. "I didn't intend for this to happen." Becca reflected, observing the distressed teacher. The road to misfortune is often paved with good intentions. By evening, Lincoln Elementary was engulfed in intense media coverage. News vans filled the street as reporters shared rapid updates concerning the teacher who had become a drug dealer. Parents assembled outside Northwood High School in worried groups, looking at their phones and quietly discussing the situation. The emergency school board meeting, quickly arranged in the district auditorium, was full of worried families. Superintendent Wallace stood at the podium, his usual confident appearance replaced by a serious expression. "We understand your concerns and share your shock," he began, addressing the restless crowd. "The actions of Ms. Winters and potentially others represent a profound betrayal of trust, but I want to assure you that we are cooperating fully with law enforcement and taking immediate steps to address the situation." These steps had already begun. Peterson from the high school and 3 other educators implicated in Ms. Winters' confession have been placed on administrative leave pending investigation. A comprehensive review of the district's standardized testing protocols was in progress. Grief counselors would be accessible to students at all impacted schools beginning tomorrow. The recent disclosures were particularly distressing for the families of Lincoln Elementary. Many had placed considerable faith in Ms. Winters over the years, recognizing her as a committed educator advocating for a school facing challenges. "My daughter adored Ms. Winters," Maria Gonzalez shared with a local reporter, her voice filled with emotion. "She received additional assistance after school 3 days a week. I now question the nature of those sessions." The school nurse had started collaborating with medical professionals to detect students potentially receiving unauthorized medication, although the complete scope was not yet known. Early information indicated that Ms. Winters had mainly focused on older students in the middle and high school levels, but several 5th graders were also involved in the situation as preliminary cases. Community leaders reacted swiftly. Councilmember Jenkins declared an emergency review of the district's performance metrics and funding formulas, and a local pharmaceutical company volunteered to sponsor drug awareness programs. Parent-teacher groups established support sessions to assist families in dealing with the disappointment. For Becca, observing the community's response evoked a range of feelings. The system that had placed pressure on Ms. Winters, despite the lack of justification for her reaction, largely remained unchanged. The same metrics, the same funding challenges, the same inequities would persist in schools such as Lincoln Elementary even after the scandal receded from public attention. How many more are there? Lieutenant Wilson mused, observing parents entering the auditorium. Educators who began with positive intentions but then violated boundaries they hadn't anticipated. The question remained unanswered, yet deeply troubling. The parking lot was dark and empty, the school long deserted, when Becca remained in her patrol car. Riker slept beside her, his duties for the day finished. His keen observation had uncovered a case that would probably extend far past Lincoln Elementary. She reached out to pet his fur, sensing his even breathing. "You did well today, partner," she whispered. "Really well." Riker opened one eye, responding to her praise with a quiet thump of his tail against the seat before returning to his rest. His absolute confidence in his abilities, his consistent focus on the job, were lessons Becca often thought about during her career. The radio was silent, the paperwork finished for now. During these calm moments between cases, doubt sometimes appeared. This isn't about Riker's capabilities, but rather about the systems they operated within, the complexities of human motivations, and the ambiguous situations their work often exposed. Ms. Winters wasn't a hardened criminal, at least not in the typical understanding of the term. She was an educator who had lost direction, who had eroded her ethical principles one incremental step at a time until she discovered herself on the opposite side of a boundary she'd previously considered inviolable. How many others existed, making comparable decisions, facing comparable pressures? Becca recalled her own difficulties as a new officer. The incentives to take shortcuts, to disregard issues for the perceived greater benefit. The pledge she'd made had steered her through those moments of uncertainty, just as Riker's training guided him through distractions and false trails. The contrast wasn't lost on her. An animal had demonstrated more defined ethical limits than a highly educated professional. Riker showed no interest in school budgets, performance metrics, or career advancement. His focus was on fulfilling the duties he's been trained for, cherishing the partnership they've cultivated, and upholding the straightforward distinction between right and wrong, a clarity humans frequently obscured with justifications. "Must be nice," Becca murmured, gently scratching behind his ears, observing his simplified view of the world. Their partnership had been established upon a foundation of trust, her faith in his instincts, his reliance on her guidance. Whenever confidence diminished, when personal reservations or political considerations or expediency became factors, the mission was compromised. The current day had emphatically underscored that understanding. Her phone vibrated with a message from Captain Reynolds. "Excellent work today. 5 additional arrests resulted from Winters' intelligence. This case will continue to broaden." Becca started the engine, glancing in her rearview mirror as Riker sat up, immediately vigilant. Despite the intricate challenges present in the continuing investigation, and regardless of the systemic shortcomings that had led to this circumstance, their course of action remained straightforward. Adhere to the evidence, rely on the training, safeguard those in need. Certain days, that straightforwardness proved sufficient. The morning sun reflected off the recently installed sign at Lincoln Elementary, proclaiming education through integrity. Principal Harrison stood beneath it, welcoming students with refreshed vigor as they entered the building for the spring semester. From their patrol car, Becca and Riker observed, having just finished their monthly visit, a new tradition that started unexpectedly. What had initially been a standard demonstration transformed into a recurring community engagement program, with Riker now quite well known among the students. A young girl with bright beads in her braids, Officer Becca, stepped away from the group, hurrying to meet them. "Is Riker coming to our class today?" Ms. Jimenez, the newly hired 4th grade teacher, smiled apologetically regarding her energetic student. "He certainly is," Becca confirmed, observing Riker's tail wagging a little at the acknowledgement. "However, recall our discussion. He's working, not playing," Zoe stated earnestly. "We are only allowed to pet him when you give permission." The investigation that commenced with Riker's alert had extended considerably beyond Lincoln Elementary. 17 educators throughout the district were ultimately involved in what the media called the achievement ring. This scandal resulted in the superintendent's resignation and a full revision of the district's performance evaluation metrics. Most significantly, it initiated a national discussion concerning the challenges confronting schools in underserved communities and the potentially harmful effects of funding exclusively based on standardized test scores. Ms. Winters had entered a guilty plea to several charges, including the distribution of controlled substances to minors, theft of test materials, and academic fraud. Her assistance resulted in a lessened sentence of 7 years, with a potential parole opportunity after 4, although her teaching career had concluded. Within the school, signs of transformation were apparent. The Testing Achievement Center had been renamed the Student Support Hub, now focusing on individualized learning assistance instead of test preparation. Parent volunteers managed a new after-school program. Funding from a grant provided by a local tech company supported comprehensive mental health services. "We're prioritizing genuine learning again," Principal Harrison said to Becca as they walked toward the assembly hall. "Test scores are important, but they don't represent the sole definition of success." The quarterly awards ceremony acknowledged progress in areas including academic growth, community service, and perseverance through challenges. The applause was thunderous as Becca and Riker were called to the stage. Officer Martinez and Riker conveyed an important lesson to the assembled students. Harrison stated, "Integrity isn't simply about adhering to rules, it's about acting ethically, even when facing challenges." While Riker performed a brief demonstration of his search skills, locating hidden training aids throughout the auditorium to the children's delight, Becca considered the changes initiated by One Alert Dog. Changes were underway, with priorities being reassessed and vulnerabilities being handled. Subsequently, as they got ready to depart, Lieutenant Wilson found them in the parking lot. "That press conference you gave last month gained national attention," he told her. "3 other districts have asked for our K-9 units to assess their testing facilities. They are referring to this as preventative measures." Becca acknowledged, observing Riker already concentrating on their next location. Prevention is always preferable to prosecution. As they drove away from Lincoln Elementary, Riker's head was held high in the passenger compartment. Becca felt a sense of completion. They hadn't just solved a crime, they'd helped set a community on a better path. Ultimately, that was what their partnership was truly about. Have you ever witnessed a working dog make an unexpected discovery, like Riker did? Their instincts often surpass our own understanding. Do you believe our education system places too much stress on teachers and students through standardized testing? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed Riker and Officer Martinez's story, please subscribe and enable notifications by clicking the bell icon to stay updated on our daily K-9 tales. Share this video with anyone who appreciates these incredible working dogs. Don't miss our previous stories, currently displayed on your screen. Until our next episode, see you tomorrow, same time, with another extraordinary K-9 hero story. An airport police dog persistently alerted to an abandoned bag. Could it potentially contain explosives? Hesitantly, security personnel opened the bag, and the contents necessitated an immediate evacuation. Here's the full story. Before we proceed, please share in the comments below where you're watching from. And if you enjoy compelling police dog stories such as this one, remember to subscribe to stay updated on future content. A sterile glow from the fluorescent lights of Terminal 5 at O'Hare International Airport illuminated the polished floors as travelers rushed by, pulling rolling suitcases and carry-ons. A continuous hum of activity filled the air, punctuated by announcements over the PA system and conversations in a mix of languages. It was just past 7 a.m. As the morning international arrivals began to arrive, bringing the usual atmosphere that Officer Benjamin Linus knew from his 6 years with the airport's K-9 unit, Benjamin straightened his dark blue uniform jacket, his badge reflecting the overhead light as he observed the increasing crowd. Beside him, Lexus, his Dutch Shepherd partner for 4 years, stayed in perfect heel position, his dark eyes carefully examining the constant flow of passengers. "Another day in paradise, huh, boy?" Benjamin murmured, briefly scratching behind Lexus's alert ears. The shepherd leaned into his touch before returning to his vigilant posture. "Morning, Linus," Officer Teresa Wong called from her post near customs. Lexus looking sharp today. Benjamin nodded in greeting. Just finished training recertification yesterday. Passed with flying colors. As usual, Security Director Melissa Harrington's voice crackled through Benjamin's radio. Attention all units. We are experiencing increased passenger volume in Terminal 5 today because of rerouted flights from Milwaukee. Please maintain a visible presence near checkpoints. Copy that, Benjamin responded, already adjusting their patrol route mentally. K9 Unit 7 will cover the east side checkpoints. Just another day at O'Hare, he thought. Routine, predictable, secure. As they turned the corner towards the less crowded international departures area, Benjamin noticed a subtle shift in the tension of Lexus's leash, the first sign that this day would be anything but ordinary. The change in Lexus's behavior was slight but unmistakable, a sudden, focused alertness that altered his usual patrol posture into something more intense. The shepherd's ears moved forward, his tail straightened, and his nose began working more intensely, taking in the air with increased urgency. "What is it, boy?" Benjamin asked softly, immediately noticing his partner's change in behavior. Lexus pulled gently on his lead, guiding Benjamin towards the eastern wing of the International Departures Terminal, a section currently undergoing renovation and less crowded than the main concourse. Early morning light poured in through large windows, revealing dust motes suspended in the air above the section with restricted seating. Benjamin surveyed the area, trying to understand what had caught Lexus's attention. The space was largely unoccupied, with only a handful of passengers asleep in chairs or absorbed in their electronics. Initially, nothing seemed out of place, but then Lexus abruptly moved towards a row of seats along the wall, his focus fixed on something located underneath them. The item was a bag, a medium-sized black duffel with no visible identification tag. It was positioned perfectly centered under the middle seat, partially hidden from a quick glance, but fully visible from their present viewpoint. Benjamin's training engaged instantly. "Secure," he instructed, and Lexus remained perfectly still, keeping his attention on the bag. However, something seemed unusual about Lexus's behavior. During training for explosive or narcotic detection, Lexus exhibited distinct alert behaviors, a passive sit for explosives and active pawing for narcotics. This was an anomaly. The dog's body was stiff with tension, and a low, sustained growl emanated from his throat, a sound Benjamin had seldom heard from his usually calm partner. "Lexus, check," Benjamin instructed, initiating the inspection signal. Rather than approaching the bag and indicating as he had been trained to do, Lexus retreated several steps. His growl deepened. His tail was now completely straight, hackles slightly raised, a posture unlike his usual alert stance. A passing custodian noticed them and began to approach. Benjamin raised his hand, stopping the man. "Sir, please step back," he ordered calmly but firmly. As if reacting to the newcomer, Lexus suddenly emitted 3 sharp, staccato barks, a sound so unlike his usual alerting behavior that it sent a chill down Benjamin's spine. Maintaining focus on the bag, Benjamin activated his radio. "Control, this is K9 Unit 7 at Terminal 5, East Wing, Section C. I have an unattended bag exhibiting atypical K9 alert behavior. I request backup and implementation of area evacuation protocol." The dispatcher replied, "Copy that, K9 Unit 7 security personnel are on their way. Commence standard abandoned bag protocol." Benjamin then began clearing the surrounding area, speaking with a firm but controlled tone to avoid causing alarm. "Esteemed guests, please gather your possessions and proceed calmly to the main concourse. Security personnel will guide you from that location." As the last non-employees left the area, a security team arrived, led by Lieutenant Jack Cassidy, the airport's senior security officer. His characteristic worried expression intensified as he evaluated the scene. "What's the situation, Linus?" Cassidy inquired, gesturing towards the bag. "Unattended bag, sir. No discernible markings, placed intentionally beneath the chairs." Cassidy's gaze moved to Lexus, who stayed focused on the target, their body rigid. "Your dog providing an unexpected alert?" Benjamin responded, worry clear in his tone. "This isn't his standard explosive alert. nor is it a narcotics detection. I'm not familiar with him behaving in this manner. Cassidy's face grew stern. Unfamiliar with this reaction? What is the significance of that? He should be alerting or he shouldn't be. A second security team arrived, bringing their usual detection tools. The lead technician, Raj Patel, started preparing a portable X-ray machine, observing Lexus with a professional gaze. Let's examine what's inside before we decide anything, Cassidy instructed. Sir, Benjamin insisted. I've been working with Lexus for 4 years. When he behaves like this, there's a valid explanation. As evacuation procedures began, Benjamin's thoughts returned to the day he first encountered Lexus, 3 years prior to their formal partnership. The recollection was clear. A scorching July afternoon at the Homeland Security Training Facility in Virginia, when Benjamin was attending specialized K-9 handler training. This one's different, Trainer Martinez stated, guiding Benjamin toward an isolated kennel separate from the other training dogs. A Dutch Shepherd, roughly 2 years old, was discovered during a raid on a trafficking operation near the Mexican border. Benjamin had looked into the kennel, anticipating an aggressive or distressed animal. However, he encountered an intensely focused gaze from a slender, muscular shepherd with distinctive amber eyes. Unlike many rescued dogs, the dog did not bark or pace. He remained perfectly still, evaluating Benjamin with a nearly human intelligence. What is his history? Benjamin asked, maintaining eye contact with the extraordinary animal. Martinez referred to his clipboard. We're not entirely sure, he stated. The operation involved smuggling both drugs and people. This dog was discovered guarding a container holding children inside. He did not attack the rescue team, did not attempt to flee, but instead protected the kids. The strangest thing I've ever seen, Martinez commented. He's failed traditional explosive detection programming, Martinez clarified. Not because he lacks the ability to detect. His scent detection abilities are exceptional, yet he repeatedly signals to things we haven't intentionally introduced. We initially dismissed these as false positives. Benjamin inquired when Martinez paused. 3 times now, he's alerted on items or locations where we discovered nothing. Each instance, we submitted the indicated items for comprehensive analysis. On each occasion, further investigation revealed something previously undetected. Chemical precursors, residues, compounds our routine tests failed to identify. It was as if he perceived the world on a different sensory plane than our other dogs. Benjamin returned to the current reality as Patel's voice cut through his memories. The initial scan revealed standard items, clothing, toiletries, and what appeared to be documentation. No explosive compounds were found, nor any unusual wiring or devices. Cassidy directed a significant look toward Benjamin. There you have it. With due respect, sir, Patel added, there's a peculiarity concerning the interior lining. Observe this density variation. The bag appeared to have a subtly altered compartment. It was barely noticeable, but clearly not a result of standard manufacturing. Benjamin felt a sudden feeling of unease as he noticed Lexus looking at him, seemingly confirming his suspicions. Lieutenant, he said softly, I believe we must treat this with utmost seriousness. Lexus has identified something that our usual protocols aren't addressing. Cassidy finally gave the order, call the bomb squad. Implement full evacuation protocol, establishing a 100-foot perimeter. Linus, I expect your dog to be correct about this. The bomb squad technicians advanced with methodical precision, their bulky protective suits making them appear almost robotic as they neared the abandoned bag. Benjamin and Lexus had been moved back to the perimeter line, where they maintained visual contact with the operation. Remote assessment first, announced Garcia, the bomb tech lead, as his team deployed a small rover equipped with additional sensing equipment. Cassidy stood beside Benjamin, his posture betraying the palpable tension. O'Hare deals with more than 2,500 lost items annually, he said. 99% are simply forgotten laptops and water bottles. He shook his head. We're closing down half a terminal because of a dog's unusual actions. The rover approached the bag, and Garcia directed its unique sensors from a distance. Following several anxious minutes, his voice came over the radio. No explosive compounds found, no radiation, No known biological agents detected. Shifting to a physical examination, Garcia proceeded, personally inspecting the bag with a specialized camera. Another individual arrived at the edge of the area, a woman wearing a fitted charcoal suit, her Homeland Security identification clearly visible. Agent Diana Walsh introduced herself briefly, asking about the circumstances. Likely a false alarm, Cassidy replied, before Benjamin could respond. Typical abandoned bag. No explosives have been found. We anticipate resuming operations soon. Walsh's keen gaze shifted from the surroundings to Lexus, who was now looking straight at her, his stance still tense and focused. That your dog, officer? Linus. Benjamin Linus. And yes, this is Lexus, she stated, rather than asked, which surprised Benjamin. I read the file. His alert behavior is unusual? Very, Benjamin confirmed. I've never seen him react this way before. Walsh examined Lexus with heightened interest. What exactly is different about his behavior? He is maintaining distance while remaining focused. Normally, he approaches detection targets directly. And these vocalizations? As if on cue, Lexus let out another series of short, sharp barks. They're not part of his training. Over the radio, Garcia's voice interrupted their conversation. Physical inspection reveals no traditional threat devices. However, there's definitely a concealed compartment in the lining. Very sophisticated work, not visible to the naked eye. Walsh's face grew serious. Don't open that compartment, she instructed firmly into her own radio. Excuse me? Cassidy questioned. This is airport jurisdiction. Not anymore, Walsh replied, showing her credentials more clearly. That bag corresponds to a profile we're monitoring. Officer Linus, how is your dog reacting? Is he retreating while still attentive? Benjamin responded, seemingly taken aback. That's precisely what's happening. Instead of explaining, Walsh quickly spoke into her radio. Agent Walsh is requesting immediate hazmat support at O'Hare Terminal 5, East Wing. A potential CBR material is suspected. Priority code Alpha. Our sensors detect known threats, Walsh replied grimly to Cassidy's protest. We've been tracking a new synthetic compound that evades standard detection. There have been 3 incidents in the past month: Dallas, Miami, and Phoenix. The only consistent detection has been unusual behavior from certain K-9 units. Specifically, alert without approach. Benjamin experienced a chilling realization. He was sensing something hazardous, though unfamiliar from his training. Therefore, he maintained a safe distance while staying vigilant. Indeed, Walsh affirmed, and should it prove to be what we suspect, your dog may have potentially saved hundreds of lives. The operations manager's face reddened significantly when Walsh requested a complete evacuation of the terminal. Do you comprehend the implications of this request? This situation involves potentially disrupting travel for thousands of people and causing millions in lost revenue. I understand perfectly, Walsh stated, her voice steady but with an unmistakable firmness. And I'm not requesting it. Following a moment of heightened tension, Cassidy's radio crackled with a transmission from the airport director himself. After a short discussion, he addressed the group, his face serious. The director has approved the full evacuation protocol for Terminal 5. We are initiating it now. With the evacuation announcement echoing through the terminal, Benjamin experienced a brief sense of relief, which was swiftly overtaken by a fresh worry. If this is what you suspect, Agent Walsh, he thought, already observing the escalating disarray of the evacuation, then whoever placed this bag here is probably still in the airport. And now we're setting everyone in motion, making them more difficult to track. Benjamin stated, his mind racing through the possibilities. We need to find them before they realize we've discovered the bag. Lexus can help. If he detected whatever's in that bag, he might be able to track the person who handled it. Agent Harlow from the CBR response unit arrived and quickly coordinated with the hazmat team. Benjamin knelt beside Lexus, speaking in a low, steady tone. We need to find who left this boy. Can you do that? Can you find them? Lexus's intelligent eyes focused on Benjamin's face, a gentle whine escaping his throat, demonstrating understanding yet conveying worry. I know it's dangerous, Benjamin said quietly. We'll be cautious, but we need to find them. The hazmat team arrived, fully equipped in protective gear, their presence forming a strange, isolated zone of intense action within the now unsettlingly vacant terminal. Benjamin and Lexus stayed at the designated perimeter, observing as the specialists cautiously neared the bag. Remote extraction first, the hazmat lead stated, deploying a specialized robot intended to manage potentially hazardous materials. While maintaining a negative pressure environment during the transfer, Harlow approached, holding a tablet displaying security footage. We've got partial facial recognition from cameras near where the bag was placed. The individual is a male, approximately 30 to 35 years old. He is Caucasian and traveling alone. He entered through the north entrance at 6:14 a.m. He was carrying a bag. That was nearly 2 hours ago, Benjamin noted with concern, suggesting he could be long gone. Harlow countered, swiping to another image, stating he was last seen entering a restroom near Gate E9 20 minutes ago and has not emerged yet. Meanwhile, the hazmat team successfully accessed the concealed compartment within a specialized containment unit. The hazmat lead's voice crackled over the radio. Professional detachment briefly faltered. This isn't just a chemical agent, he stated. There's sophisticated delivery equipment in here. A timer, atomizer, distribution system, and documentation. A lot of it. The hazmat lead continued, his voice returning to its professional calm. The dispersal mechanism was set for noon, 4 hours from now, when the terminal would be at peak capacity. Travel documents, multiple identities, and maps. Terminal layouts for O'Hare, Atlanta Hartsfield, LAX. This indicated a broader operation. A hazmat technician meticulously removed what seemed to be a small notebook, securing it in a transparent evidence bag, and subjecting it to a decontamination procedure before it was given to Harlow. It's a manifesto, Harlow stated grimly as he examined the pages. Concerning rhetoric, including expressions of extreme opposition to immigration and allusions to restricting international travel, has emerged. This indicated a planned terrorist attack with the intent to target foreign nationals at several airports. The hazmat team has identified the chemical compound involved. It is a synthesized neurological agent, non-lethal upon contact, but intended to induce panic, disorientation, and respiratory distress within a densely populated airport environment, potentially leading to widespread panic and chaotic trampling. Benjamin completed his thought. Standard sensors wouldn't identify it, as it's designed to stay inactive until scattered. Harlow gave Benjamin a hotel key, which was located in an outer pocket of the bag and is now secured in an evidence bag. It should be safe for your dog to analyze the scent from the bag without physical contact. Lexus. Scent. Benjamin instructed, holding the sealed bag close to the shepherd's nose without opening it. Lexus inhaled deeply, then looked at Benjamin, attentive and prepared. Locate him. Benjamin gave the signal, and they proceeded into the terminal's interior, where their suspect might still be concealed. Lexus advanced with focused determination through the evacuated terminal, his nose working constantly as he followed the scent from the hotel key card. Benjamin kept a steady tension on the lead, allowing his partner sufficient freedom to work while remaining connected to his movements. Agent Walsh and 2 airport security officers trailed behind, maintaining a distance to avoid disrupting the scent tracking. The deserted terminal, usually filled with activity, provided a disturbing scene for their pursuit. Coffee cups remained warm on the tables. Breakfast sandwiches were left unfinished. Newspapers drifted in the air conditioning, which continued to operate despite the evacuation. As they headed toward Concourse E, Benjamin spoke softly into his radio, while Lexus guided them past closed duty-free shops and empty waiting areas. Lexus abruptly stopped at a junction of corridors, his sense of smell working intensely as he appeared to evaluate different scent paths. Following a brief pause, he turned purposefully toward a service corridor labeled Authorized Personnel Only. He is entering the restricted area, Benjamin confirmed into his radio. Request backup at Service Corridor E42. The door to the service area was slightly ajar, a further cause for concern, as these doors were mandated to remain secured at all times. Lexus's pace increased, his body language indicating a closer approach to their target. The narrow corridor opened into a more spacious back-of-house area where airport operations handled luggage, supplies, and equipment. Lexus paused once more, moving around a section close to a staff break room before returning towards a door labeled electrical access. His actions changed slightly. His ears perked, his posture suggesting he's found their target. Through the little, wire-reinforced window, Benjamin could see activity inside, someone quickly collecting things from a backpack. Subject identified, Benjamin spoke into his radio. Male matches description, seems to be getting ready for something. Request immediate tactical response. Lexus emitted a warning bark. The suspect had observed their presence through the window. Immediately, the man inside began moving, displaying frantic energy, retrieving something from his pack. No time, Benjamin responded urgently. Subject is actively handling unknown materials. We're moving in now. With practiced coordination, Benjamin and the security team positioned themselves at the door while Walsh covered their flank. With Benjamin's approval, an officer opened the door, and they entered quickly. Airport police, Homeland Security, hands where we can see them, Walsh ordered, raising her weapon. The suspect, a thin man with close-cropped hair and pale eyes, paused briefly, his hands near what looked like another modified bag resembling the one they had discovered. He then moved swiftly, lunging for a small canister on the workbench. Another device. Benjamin cautioned, issuing a command at the same time. Lexus, stop. The Dutch shepherd surged ahead with intense focus, expertly trained to neutralize dangers without causing serious harm. He intercepted the suspect's arm just as he attempted to reach the canister, using a controlled pressure with his jaw that made the man cry out and fall backward. Don't move, Walsh instructed as Benjamin secured Lexus, and the security officers moved in to restrain the suspect. A brief examination of the room exposed the troubling extent of the operation, including another partially assembled dispersal device, additional documentation, and what seemed to be communication equipment. The suspect remained handcuffed to a chair in the airport security office, his gaunt face set in a look of scornful silence as Agent Harlow and a recently arrived FBI agent prepared for questioning. His name is Ethan Mercer, Walsh told Benjamin, reading from a preliminary report on her tablet. A former chemical engineering student, who left school 3 years ago, had been flagged for extremist online activity on several watch lists. However, no action was deemed necessary until now. Through the speaker, they could hear Harlow starting the interrogation, using a methodical and controlled approach. Mercer remained silent, offering only occasional smirks and shrugs in response. The interrogation stretched on for several minutes without significant advancement until the FBI agent presented photographs of the disassembled device on the table. A subtle expression crossed Mercer's face, not fear, but something resembling pride. You were fortunate, Mercer finally said, his voice unexpectedly gentle and clear. If not for that dog. Benjamin noticed Lexus stiffen next to him at the mention, as if the shepherd recognized he was the subject of discussion. How many more? Harlow asked, leaning forward. Mercer's smile broadened a little. Sufficient. Today marked the commencement. The purification process has begun, and the impending events are unstoppable. A disturbance in the hallway captured their focus when the hazmat team leader arrived with pressing information. We have finished the analysis of the communication devices located with the suspect, he stated. They are burner phones, each containing only 3 numbers in the call history. Each of those 3 numbers traces back to prepaid phones bought in separate cities. Walsh suspected Dallas, Atlanta, and Los Angeles. His assessment proved accurate, the hazmat lead verified. Further details emerged. The devices incorporated synchronized timers, intended for simultaneous activation across all locations. Your phones betrayed you, Ethan, Harlow stated, her voice steady through the interrogation room speaker. We are currently monitoring your associates. He glanced at his watch with a studied nonchalance. They are likely already in custody. Now, the crucial question remains, who will break their silence first? The possibility of avoiding a lifetime in solitary confinement hinged on cooperation. For the first time, uncertainty appeared on Mercer's face. His meticulously built resistance started to falter. Your dog ruined everything, Mercer abruptly said, glaring at the one-way glass as if he could see Benjamin through it. Those devices were undetectable. We tested them for months. How did that animal know? As the sun set over the O'Hare runways, Terminal 5 was declared clear of all threats. Limited operations had resumed in other areas of the airport. Thousands of passengers remained displaced, their travel plans disrupted by the day's events. Benjamin stood by a wall of windows overlooking the tarmac, watching planes slowly returning to their gates as Lexus rested at his feet, finally relaxed after the intense day. Officer Linus, Agent Walsh approached, appearing weary but satisfied, and thought you'd want an update before you left. Mercer provided his contacts after approximately 3 more hours of interrogation, she reported. Tactical teams apprehended 2 accomplices in Atlanta and 1 in Los Angeles, all possessing similar devices in early preparation stages. Dallas proved to be a false lead, a deliberate misdirection, potentially in response to compromised communications. We stopped it, Benjamin confirmed, his voice conveying obvious relief. Completely? Walsh affirmed, looking down at Lexus with a gesture of respect. The timing was absolutely critical. Had that first device deployed successfully, it would have provided data enabling improvements to the others. Each subsequent attack would have been more effective. Do you have any understanding yet of how he managed to detect the compound when none of our equipment could? Walsh smiled faintly. Our lab has a theory. The compound's chemical profile shifts slightly upon exposure to the surrounding atmosphere. This characteristic contributed to the difficulty in its detection. Standard instruments are often adjusted to recognize defined, consistent profiles. Lexus, however, operates differently. Canines don't use calibration. They interpret sent data through unique methods, identifying patterns and alterations beyond the capacity of current technology. Dr. Aris knelt down to Lexus's level, receiving a questioning head movement from the shepherd. This particular dog appears exceptionally skilled. It's likely his early experiences contributed to his advanced detection abilities. Lieutenant Cassidy arrived, his initial doubts giving way to clear respect. The director has scheduled a meeting for both of you tomorrow morning. A commendation is planned. The FBI is now assuming control of the investigation, Walsh stated. However, Homeland Security remains keen on evaluating your K9's detection capabilities. With your permission, we'd like to develop a training program utilizing Lexus's responses to assist other dogs in recognizing these types of threats. As Walsh and Cassidy departed, Benjamin knelt beside Lexus, carefully taking the dog's face in his hands. The intelligent amber eyes that had first connected with him years ago at the training facility looked back with the same unwavering trust. You did well today, partner. Really well. He stroked his hands along Lexus's sides. A final check was performed to ensure there were no signs of distress or exposure. Finding none, the lead was reattached to the tactical collar. Let's go home. As they walked through the terminal, which was gradually reopening, Benjamin thought about how many near misses in his career had depended on split-second decisions and instinctive reactions. But today had been different. Today focused on the deep trust developed between Handler and K9 through years of collaboration, a connection that went beyond training manuals and standard procedures. What Lexus accomplished couldn't be duplicated by technology or documented in reports. It represented the peak of natural aptitude, specialized training, and something more intangible, a nearly instinctive ability that some remarkable working dogs appeared to have. Benjamin had consistently trusted his partner's skills, but today had solidified that trust into something absolute. No matter what difficulties they encountered moving forward, they would confront them as a team, their partnership strengthened by the experiences of today. The following morning would involve reviews, paperwork, and probably numerous inquiries regarding Lexus's distinctive detection abilities. For tonight, Benjamin felt satisfied, knowing that many travelers would return home safely to their families, completely unaware of how narrowly they had avoided disaster, and how a Dutch shepherd with amber eyes had stood between them in the midst of chaos. Have you ever experienced a moment when an animal perceived something that humans completely missed? Animals often possess remarkable abilities that science is still trying to understand. This story highlights how vital these instincts can be in critical situations. We are interested in hearing about your experiences with animals that appear to possess more understanding than the humans nearby. Considering you were in Officer Linus's position, would you have believed your canine partner's atypical behavior, despite technology and protocols indicating no danger? It requires significant courage to support a partner's instincts when others advise caution. Can you recall a time when you made a tough choice relying on your gut feeling instead of data? Working dogs, such as Lexus, contribute to saving many lives daily across the globe due to their remarkable skills and commitment. Do you have personal encounters with service animals or working dogs that impressed you with their intelligence and abilities? Please share your stories in the comments below. Inspired by Lexus's incredible story today? Don't miss our next video. Subscribe and enable notifications. We release another unforgettable story of heroism and dedication from the world's most extraordinary canine officers every day at the same time. Give a like if you think these four-legged heroes deserve more recognition for their life-saving work. We think you'll enjoy this video if you love dogs or are interested in canine units. Please see our previous stories, which are appearing on the screen now. And remember, behind every great police dog is a partnership built on unwavering trust and communication. We'll see you again tomorrow at the same time with another amazing canine story.